let's start with the first recording, which is brrr. When I double click on the recording, I have this time right here and this time right here, which are basically like don't have any sound. And then my sound came. So I'm gonna start closer to the sound so that when I click here, it's gonna start where it basically starts wherever I put this arrow. Also, I can right click on this arrow or cue point, set point, and click 1.1 so that my time grid changes and I'm starting from the 1. Basically, this grid right here is totally adaptable. As long as I have the warp selected, I can choose like where I want to move the sample. I can move it to start over here. I'm going to change my grid to off because then I have more flexibility about how I move this around. Let's see how it sounds. I feel like that's kind of too fast for the sample I want, so let's move it to half a grid. I'm going to change the time, the length over here, to 2 bars. So the end is going to be here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So if I have the metronome going, so I want to start this at the beginning. I'm going to double click over here and actually have the set point start here instead. Make sure that I have enough length here and just move this back to 3. Okay, so I can choose whether I want to stretch, extend, or basically like diminish and quicken the sample that I'm using. We're working with 120 BPM, as you can see within this sample functions. BPM is also listed right here. We can adapt it, but also I can click +2, which is basically going to like make this sample go quicker. Or I can extend it. All right, so let's manipulate this sound a little bit. When I come here, it's automatically going to be on beats. If it's not drums or beats, and it's a more like vocal melodic sound, I recommend changing to tones or Complex Pro. So let's quicken this sample and see what it sounds like. Automatically, it changed my grid a little bit, so I'm just going to reset that and see what it sounds like. So now it's quicker. Let's stretch it out a little bit and make it longer. So we have 2 different options here. I'm going to shift all of these down by selecting them and moving them. So I'm going to do burr fast, and I'm going to copy and paste this here and do burr slow. So for this one, I'm going to make it faster. Maybe even faster. There we go. Let's see what sounds with tones. Did you hear the difference? Sometimes just changing the option here of how the computer is processing the sample makes a big difference for the sound. This sounds a lot clearer than what Complex is doing. It sounds like brr or brr. And that one sounds a little more digital. So I'm going to stick to tones. And I'm going to reduce this loop to being like... We can always change this later. Yeah. Okay. Now the slow one. That sounds cool. They both sound so different now. Okay. So for this one, maybe I'll change the pitch. The pitch I can change right here. Let's see how it sounds pitching it up and down a little bit. When I pitch it down, it almost sounds like wind. When I pitch it up, it sounds a little more digital. Do you hear how with this, since I used my voice, it's automatically picking up different tones by changing the pitch? So we can actually turn this audio sound into an instrument in the computer, which we're gonna do in the next lesson. So for now, I'm gonna make a note of this, and I can change the color as well. So I'm gonna change it to orange and just make a note. Lesson 5. So let's see what else we can do. We have the paper crinkle. Which also sounds kind of windy. I kind of like how digital this sounds now. It doesn't sound like a paper crinkle anymore. Digital crinkle. This almost sounds like it's raining. The reason why I'm looping it from 1 to 9 or 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, it's just a lot easier to work with loops that are easily divided or multiplied, because later when you're creating your track, they're already going to be ready to be copied and pasted, starting with 16 bars or more and multiplying or dividing. You can start with 1 bar, 2 bars, and then just double that. 4, 8, 16, etc. I think this loop I'll just keep as is because it already kind of sounds like rain, and we'll put an effect on it after. Now I'm going to get into the field recordings. Since this has one section much louder than the other, I'm gonna duplicate this sample, and I adjusted the volume here. I'm gonna move these down. I'm gonna duplicate this sample. So jungle 1, jungle 2. I'm gonna take this section, just move the loops over here. And raise the volume a little bit. It's only picking up what's here. There's the waterfall. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So maybe I will do this section. Click loop. This one sounds good as is for maybe a texture. We have the traffic, which I'm gonna raise. Now let's say I don't want to stretch the whole thing out. I just want to take move this over. I can just double click right here and I can just move it. Just kind of popped. I'll just use this little section. And over here is some stronger winds. I like how they're not popping, they're just like windy, like. They're popped there, so that's a nice loop. Now, the other way to sample, besides looping, is just taking individual sounds. And we can do that through these traffic noises. There's a couple ways we can do it, but staying on this screen, I'm just gonna copy and paste this here or duplicate it, double click. Once we get up right to where the sound is, like this, I'll zoom in, and zooming in is this symbol. Stretching it towards me opens it up on the mouse pad, and farther away closes it. You can also use key commands. So if I double click this here, well, I don't necessarily have to double click. I can move this over, move the cursor over, and that means when I click this, it's going to start right from that point. I'm going to take the end set point cursor and end it right here. So if I make this 1.1, I can pretty much end it wherever I wish. And then I don't have to loop it, so I can take off the loop, which means that when I click it, it's just going to play and stop. Basically, what's happening when I click play, it might take a minute to start, and that's because I have the start time set to 1 bar. I can take that off, click none, and it's going to start exactly when I click it. The reason why one might set it for 1 bar or half a bar is when you want all of your loops to play, when you start playing with beats, you want them to play like in sync, then you need to have a grid set so that when you click it, it won't start until the next point in the time signature. I'm going to copy and paste this or duplicate it, and I'll just say beep 1. Let's get another beep out here. That one's pretty good. So we'll do that. And I'll do one more because they're in different tones. So if I take it off, I'm going to change this one. Let's see. This one sounds like. And we can edit these later, but 3 different beeps from 3 different cars. It's a very New York City sound. So now we have edited, we have our loops ready, and in the next lesson, we're going to dive into editing using audio effects on all these loops, and then they will be ready